Hi guys, so one of the things about the fact that Labour has reinstated the 2030 cutoff point for the sale of brand new ICE, that's internal combustion engine cars, so petrol and diesel cars, so it's reinstated that to 2030. Rishi Sunak, previous government, had moved it to 2035, but the Labour had always said that once we come into power, we'll move it back to 2030. So at 2030, you will not be able to buy a brand new petrol or diesel car. The only cars you will be able to buy will be electric, EVs, and some hybrids, probably plug-in hybrid cars. Now, a lot of people have said, people have left comments and messaged me, or people I speak to, they said, well, that's fine. We're just going to wait till 2029 or whatever, and then we'll buy our last petrol car there, so that we can then, see it off into, however long you want it. Now, okay, in one way that does make sense, and you could do that. But what I do warn people is that even though the deadline is 2030, I think that before then, we will start to see a substantial reduction in the amount of petrol or diesel cars that are actually available to buy. So the choice may be quite limited. And in fact, I think we're just going to see more and more hybrids coming on rather than any of these. So if you didn't want a hybrid and you wanted a pure petrol or diesel, and specifically for this video, we're going to be looking at petrol, what I say to you is that you should buy it now. And if you're a petrolhead and you want something that's interesting and exciting and something that might be a bit inspiring and a bit exciting to drive, or something a bit interesting, something a bit cool, then actually you need to do that now. And I'm not just saying that, because while we've all been sleeping, there's already been a ton of cars that we've lost, and several that we're going to be losing this year as well. I mean, for example, obviously we all know that Jaguar is gone, so they are no longer selling brand new cars now. So cars from them, things like the F-Type, the beautiful F-Type, which is such a beast in V8 guys, for example, that's gone. You can't buy that brand new anymore. And another Jaguar, the F-Pace SVR. I thought that was a terrific SUV, a proper muscle SUV. That's gone, right? Don't forget that a couple of years ago, Lotus killed off the Elise, the Evora, the Exige, some of the best driving cars that existed, full stop. They are gone. Lexus. I thought that the RC was still available, but apparently I looked on the website, RC, LC, of course, I think that was gone, and then the RC is also gone. So the RC, which actually not a lot of people rated, maybe here in the UK, but it was one of my, especially the RCF, was one of my favorite cars. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. That's gone. Sticking with the Lexus Toyota, the GT86 or FT86 or GR86 or whatever you want to call it, but you know what the one I mean, right? The Toyota Coupe, the two-doors sports car. It's one of my favorite cars to drive, and I always say that people, especially younger drivers that want to get into their first rear-wheel drive car, I think you don't want too much power. That's about the power that you need, and it's all about learning the dynamics of how to handle the car. The gearbox was fantastic, the handling was brilliant, and if you knew how to throw the weight around, yes, you could drift it, but it wasn't as easy to drift as people thought it was. Terrific little car. It's not on their website anymore. It's not there, not in the UK anyway, so you can't get that. And there's a bunch of others that's happening too as well. So what I'm going to do in this video, and I'm going to concentrate particularly on petrolhead cars, enthusiast cars, the kind of cars that we would like to own. And this is a warning. Basically, if you wanted to buy one of these petrol cars and you were thinking, what, I'm going to wait until 2029 and I'll buy one then, and then that'll be... No, you cannot wait. You have to buy it now. And these are the cars that you can still buy. For how much longer? Well, I'll tell you what. Let's get into all of that right after this.
A brown car guy. Brown car guy.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to break it down into price categories. So let's start with under 30k. Now 30k, I know you're thinking, well, that's an expensive number, but don't forget we're talking about brand new cars here. So 30k, and 30k these days is not actually a lot for a brand new car. I know a lot of people are like, oh, 30k, who can afford it? Yeah, but I'm sorry, but have you seen the price of, regular cars such as a Corsa or whatever? A Corsa is now 18 grand. I know in our heads we still think they're about 12 grand. Now they're about 18, 20 grand, for a spec'd up one. So 30k, right? Now, the great thing is that I did just mourn the loss of the Toyota GT86, whatever you want to call it, the Toyota 86. But The only other car that basically is the same as that, has been going longer, and is in fact the world's best-selling roadster, is of course the Mazda MX-5, and thank God, or the Mazda Miata if you're watching this in America, and thank God that is still available. So the Mazda MX-5 is still there. You can still get it. You can get it with a manual gearbox, and you can get it from under 30k. They start from under 30k. So that's a bit of a bargain. You should definitely get one of those if you're looking for a two-door sports coupe roadster sort of thing. It's a brilliant little car. I love them. Absolutely fun to drive. Yeah. And who knows how much longer we're going to have those for. Number 2. The Mini Cooper. Yes, they've just come out with a brand new Mini Cooper, and they did come out with an electric version first. And I thought, like with a lot of people, that the Mini would probably choose to go entirely electric with the new Mini, because that's what Fiat did with the 500, for example. But thankfully, although they introduced the electric version first, they haven't done that. There are petrol versions of the Mini Cooper, so you can still get them, and they're affordable. From £23,000 for the regular Cooper. £23,000, that's not bad at all. And that's a Mini Cooper. That's about 156 horsepower. That's not bad. You get a Cooper S, £27,000, 200 horsepower, 204 horsepower. Not bad at all. And then 33k, so just breaking through our 30k ceiling there, you get the John Cooper Works, and that's 231 brake horsepower. But you know what? Cooper S is good. These are definitely worth considering. Only problem is no more manual gearbox. Can't get a manual gearbox with these anymore. That's a bit of a shame. You can get a manual gearbox with my third and final car on this under 30k list, I'm afraid. Is a Suzuki Swift that we reviewed just recently. This is a new one that came out last year, and unfortunately there's no sport in this one anymore, but and it isn't that quick. But what I will say about it is it's affordable. We're talking about 20k car, but it's affordable, but also, I don't know why this car is just switched off that I'm sitting in right now. But anyway, the car is affordable, and it's old school in its feel. It's manual gearbox. It's got a ratchet handbrake, old school. To drive it feels old school. Although it's got all the latest gizmos, all the safety features, everything that you want from a modern car. It's got everything, connectivity, all that. It's got everything. But to drive, it's still old school. So that's definitely one to look. Right, so let's move on to the next price bracket, which is actually £30,000 to £50,000. And bizarrely, actually, all of the cars in this bracket are actually hatchbacks. Yes, I know, £30,000 to £50,000. Yeah, they're all hatchbacks. They're all hot hatches, basically. That's what we've come to. And these are the last of the hot hatches, really. So you need to pay attention to this. And we'll start with an old favorite, an old fan favorite as well, a favorite of mine as well, the Focus ST. Did you know that the Focus is pretty much on run out now? They're killing it off, and that means that this is going to be the last year that you can get it. It's very likely going to be stopped this year or towards the end of this year. But the Focus ST is still available. It starts from under 40k. I think you can still get a manual one. These cars are fun. They're punchy. They're exciting. They're just, iconic, in fact. And if you're a Ford fan and you're thinking, I want a fast Ford that's accessible, then this might be your last chance. Because don't forget, Ford is completely realigning its product strategy, and it's moving up market and killing off all the smaller bread and butter cars and product ranges that it had. So this could be it. Ford Focus. You better hurry with that one. The next one, again, I said hot hatches with these, right? But this next one, I think of it more as a saloon, although technically it's got a hatch. So the Honda Civic Type R, the new one that came out a couple of years ago. This, I haven't actually seen any of them on the road. So this is obviously not sold that well. But you know what? You're missing out. I know why it hasn't sold, because the price jumped by 20k. Because the one before that was around 33k, and then this one came out at 50k, and it's an Alfa 50k. But it is out there. It's available. It's only available with a manual, so it's a car that only comes with a manual gearbox. And it is. A friend of mine just bought one in the UAE. Loves it. It is a great car, and this might be your last chance. So if you can stretch to 50k, you should get one of those. I'm pretty sure that the next Type R is probably going to be a hybrid or something, because they're doing the Prelude, and I think the Prelude is going to be a hybrid. That technology probably is going to come into the other car. So this might be it. Might be your last chance. Definitely worth considering. Another Japanese car, the Toyota GR Yaris. Now, these are also expensive for such a little, again, it's a sort of pocket rocket size thing, this really, but it's £46,000 for its size. And not only is it expensive, but it's hard to get. Because honestly, they don't have them. You have to order them, especially, and wait for the consignment and stuff like that. So it's not easy to get. So they are on the website at the moment. I just checked. So it is on the website at the moment. So if you want one, you better hurry. You better snap one up fast. You will have to spend a bit of money on it. Actually, to be honest, all these hot hatches are over 40k. When did hot hatches get over 40k? The next one, and the next three, I should say, actually, but I'm going to group them into one because of the Volkswagen Golf. Volkswagen Golf you can get as a GTI, GTI Clubsport, and the R. I just reviewed all three of those cars. They're all on my channel. You can go check them out. Out of these three, I prefer the GTI Clubsport as the most exciting drive, particularly if you do track stuff and that sort of thing, or if you live out, where there are roads are really good and stuff like that. But for regular performance, everyday performance, I thought the R was actually the better car. And actually, there's only 2k difference between them. We're talking up to about 45k for the R, so that's probably the better car. But then at 45k, you're talking about Yaris as well and stuff. So, but anyway, that's for you to think about. Now, why the Golf GTI? Because you're thinking, surely that will just go on forever, won't it? Because it feels like it has done, and it was the original hot hatch in a sense, wasn't it? Well, yes, possibly, but there is an ID GTI slated for 2026. ID, as you would know, is the electric versions of Volkswagen. So ID3, ID4, ID5, etc. So the IDs are the electric versions. There's an ID GTI. Essentially, that's going to be the new Golf GTI. So it could be that the next option that you get after this will be an electric one. So if you want a petrol one, you should get one of these now. Hope you're enjoying this video. If you are, make sure you hit that like button, comment, share, tell the world. We're moving up into the 50 to 80,000 pound bracket. There's quite a lot of cars in this category. I'm sorry, there just are. You're thinking, well, all the cars in the 50 plus category. It's just the nature of the new car market, I'm afraid. But let's get through these quickly. The Alpine A110. I drove this a couple of years ago. I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. It doesn't come as a manual, of course, but really fun car, nicely balanced, good handling, reasonably lightweight and stuff like that. But these are probably going to be replaced next year with an EV version. So I think that, if you wanted the petrol one, which makes all the noise and all the rest of it, you need to get that now. BMW M2, this came out, last year I think it came out. And the looks are a little bit divisive, a little bit polarizing. I actually quite like it. I thought it was quite cool looking. 66,000 pounds, they're not cheap, but rear wheel drive, twin turbo inline 6, and manual gearbox. This is a BMW that you can order with a manual gearbox, and you'll understand why I say that now a little bit later on. So yeah, definitely worth looking at, and old school fun in the sense that, it feels like an old school M3 sort of thing, if you see what I mean, as opposed to the current M3, M4s. Number 3, I'm going to put another Ford here, and this one will be around for a while, to be fair, because Ford have said that they're going to keep building these as long as they're allowed to build them. And they are, what I'm talking about, of course, is the Ford Mustang. Now, it's crept up in price here in the UK, so they're now £56,000 for a Ford Mustang, but V8, 5-litre V8, it got power, comes with a manual gearbox if you want it, and of course, it's still one of the coolest cars out there. These are still available. Of course, it was completely refreshed last year, so a completely new car. Although they're saying that these will continue to be available as long as, but don't forget, we have the 2030 deadline, so you only have 5 years at most to get yourself a Mustang if you wanted one. And I don't think it's going to change shape now in 5 years, so this current one is going to be the one that will last into that, up to that cutoff point. Number 4, I'm going to put a Mercedes AMG, although Mercedes have really muddied the waters. I'll come to that in a minute. But what I'm going to put down is the AMG A45. It's a bit of a hot hatch, but it's an expensive hot hatch. And that is the A45S 2-litre turbo, but it's got 415 brake horsepower, and it's got a 0 to 60 time of 3.9 seconds. So this thing is damn quick. Now, as I said, I'll come back to Mercedes, because the other thing is that Mercedes, of course, the AMGs always used to be great. They always used to have V8s in them. They don't anymore. So the current C-Class AMG, the AMG C63, is not a V8. I know it's called a C63, but it's not a V8. It's a 2-litre. They introduced that last year, I think it was. And honestly, I have to just ignore that one. I have to write it off, because to me, that just doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel like that should be the one that I should be telling you to get. Should have a V8 in it. Now, fortunately, there's a CLE coming out, AMG CLE 63 coming out. That will see the V8 put back into it. And there are some rumors that the C-Class, the C63, is going to get the V8 back, because obviously there's been that much backlash against putting a 4-cylinder in it. So there may be hope yet. But what I would say with the Mercs is that look for the V8. And those are the AMGs to get. Any of the AMGs. The Porsche Boxster Cayman, or the 718 as they call it now. The Porsche 718 Boxster Cayman. Great cars. I remember doing the launch of these cars a few years back in the UAE. And these are actually already discontinued in Europe. And this is to do with cybersecurity legislation. So a lot of cars are being killed off, not just because of the whole EV emission legislation, but also other things like cybersecurity, like how safe is your data in the car. So if any of these cars are collecting data and they don't have the tech in there to safeguard it, they're also being killed off if it's too expensive to upgrade them, so to speak. So this is what's happened to the 718 Boxster Cayman. But it's still available in the UK. You can still get these in the UK, so you better act fast. I know a lot of people are like, oh, well, they don't want one of these because, you know, I want a 911. But honestly, these are a little bit more accessible and affordable, but they're also actually better handling cars. That's the reality of it. It's just because of that mid-engine balance, they're better handling cars. But they're on run out. So if you want to get these, you better hurry. Now, at number 7 on this category, on this list, I was going to put the Toyota GR Supra, because it's available as a manual. Last year, I think it was early last year, they introduced it as a manual. And of course, if you know the Supra, it's basically now BMW Z8 underneath it. But the BMW doesn't come with a manual. Toyota put a manual gearbox in it. So this was like great. However, it's not on the website. It's not on the website, and this is alarming. That means it's barely had like a year and a bit on sale. And on the website, it says currently unavailable to order. And there's no indication of when they will be available to order. So if you want one, you better log on or register or whatever. Tell your dealer that you want one if they do become available, but there's no guarantee that they will. But this is really disappointing with the Toyota GT86 and now the Supra. Come on, Toyota, what are you doing? And are you going to give us a Celica, which is rumored as well, which hopefully that will come through? I want to see them back. I want to see all these cars back, please. And this is a former Celica Supra owner saying this, right? Sticking with Toyota, though, at number 8, and I wasn't really going to put SUVs on this list because this was supposed to be enthusiast cars. But I am thinking that for those people that are saying, I want a car, it's going to be my last petrol car, I'm going to buy it, I'm going to keep it, run it forever. Well, the only car that you can really do that with, buy it, keep it, and know that it will outlive you today is a Toyota Land Cruiser. And there's a whole brand new one. It's just come out. It ain't cheap. £72,000 for one of these. Looks the business though, and you know it's going to be solid. So if you can stretch that far and it's just one car for the forever, that's probably the one to get. Right, so the next category is the 80,000 to 100,000 category. And a few interesting cars in this one. We'll start with the Alfa Romeo Giulia Quadrifoglio. These are £80,000. This is like a BMW M3 rival from Italy. This is Italy's M3, basically. That's what that is. And I reviewed these when they came out. I've driven them many times. I love them. I think they're fantastic. I think they're much underrated. Reliability is always a bit of an issue with Alphas, but as a driving experience, just the engine noise, the brilliance of the drive, the acceleration, the handling, they're absolutely fantastic. 80k is a lot of money. Top tip, what I will say, obviously being Alphas and Italian cars, they tend to lose a lot of money on the used market. And actually, I had a quick look, and there's quite a few really good ones, 2017, 2018 models, starting from under £30,000. So if you're after a bit of a performance bargain on the used market, you should check these out. Although I feel like I should do a separate video on the used cars that you should buy now. And I'll also add the Stelvio Quadrifoglio to this list as well. I remember driving those and they were almost as much fun to drive as the Saloon, bizarrely. For an SUV, they were actually really, really fun to drive, but they're even more expensive, £89,000. But again, you can get them from 30k used. But these two proper Alphas in an era when we're going to start seeing electric and hybrid Alphas, so we already are. So yeah, if you want a proper Alpha, those are the ones to get them now. Moving on to the M3 and the M4, BMW M3, M4. These you can still buy. They are still terrific. I think they still look great. I think the current M4 Coupe, I think it looks fantastic. The only thing is though, no manuals. You can't, in the UK, you can't get them with a manual gearbox. In other markets you can, but not in the UK, unfortunately. But if you're after a performance BMW, pinnacle sort of thing, M3, M4, do it now. Get those now. At number 4, we did mention earlier right at the beginning of the video that Lotus has killed off all of its fun cars, but it did leave us with what it initially claimed was going to be its last internal combustion engine car, which is the Lotus Emira. These are about £90,000. A bit of a waiting list on them. You get them with the Mercedes engine or with the Toyota V6. I would say get the Toyota V6 because you can get the manual gearbox option with that one. The only thing about these is is that, or the only thing I should add is that although Lotus said that this was going to be its last internal combustion engine car, there are some reports out that actually they might be backtracking on that just because of the nature of the market. And of course, maybe because of the EVs that they keep putting out, the SUVs and the saloon, whatever they're called, maybe the reception has not been as good as perhaps they were hoping. So we may see an about turn there, as we are seeing with some other manufacturers as well. But for now, the only internal combustion engine pure petrol car that you can get from Lotus is the Emira. By all accounts, it had some early teething troubles, but apparently they've been ironed out now, and people that own them really enjoy them. So, but they aren't cheap, but it's worth checking out. But you know, if you think of it as a supercar, in terms of supercar prices, that's actually quite affordable. So have a look at those. The only other car I can think of that actually fits in there, because the R8, the Audi R8 also is dead. That's also a junior supercar that was actually daily drivable, accessible. That's also dead. That was killed off about 2 years ago, I think, if I'm correct. There is the Corvette. Not technically officially on sale in the UK, but also at that price. Acura, of course, Acura Honda NSX, that was also killed off as well. That's also gone. Anyway, this is not about supercars. But I will finish this category now with the Maserati Ghibli. Yeah, not Quattroporte, because that's a big sort of executive luxury saloon car thingy now. And not the Gran Turismo, even though there's a new one. Because although there is an EV version, but there is a petrol, but it's a 6-cylinder. Whereas if you want a proper Maserati V8, you can still get it, and you can get it with 580 horsepower in a Ghibli. And I've driven Ghiblis, and they are fun to drive. So Ghibli is your Maserati that you should get today, and probably the last good one that you're going to get. Hi guys, I've been writing. This is my first book, a novel, an all-out action thriller, and this one is a collection of 13 stories I've written over the course of 2 decades. The Ulysses Files and the Quantum Races by BC Guy are out now on Amazon.com. And finally, let's touch on the really high-end, £100,000 plus. I'm not going to go into supercar category because, you know, prices and things just get ridiculous here. And the idea of this video was just to help those petrol heads that were thinking of buying one last petrol car before the 2030 deadline. And I think that if you're going into the above 100k category, you want to look at things like the Aston Martin Vantage V8. I mean, it still comes with a V8, so you have a look at that one. Then you've got the Mercedes, we're talking about AMG again, but the GT63, the coupe, still has a V8, so have a look at that. But of course, I think that the car really to get is the Porsche 911. Manual is still available with that car, not with all of them, but with some categories. But having said that, the 911 is going to be with us for a while. Let's be honest. They're probably going to take that right up to 2030. No doubt about it. So if there was one car on this list where I would feel pretty confident that you would still be able to get them in 2029 as a petrol car, I would say it's the 911. Having said that, you never know. It could be a hybrid by that time. So there you go. What I will also add here is additional companies. You may be thinking companies like, for example, Caterham, Morgan, and even to an extent you could add companies like Ferrari, Lamborghini, McLaren. Now with the ZEV mandate, they're okay at the moment because the ZEV mandate only applies to manufacturers selling more than 2,500 cars in the UK. So therefore these cars generally, the annual sales are lower than that. So they generally don't have to do that percentage step thing. So they can keep selling petrol cars technically right up to 2029, but at that point at 2030 they do all have to switch. So I mean, and we're already seeing that, you know, Ferrari and are moving towards hybridization, electrification, but what's going to happen with companies like Caterham and Morgan, for example? Well, there's already companies doing conversions to Morgans, so they're proving that that can be done. And the Caterham 7, I mean, that's been around for like since the Jurassic age, is simplicity itself. And basically the car is designed to accommodate just about any engine in there, from a Hayabusa to, you know, a Ford 1.4, whatever it was, I can't remember. You can stick anything in there. So it doesn't defy logic to think that, you know, you'd be easy to put an electric drive system in there. It would add weight, but Caterham is actually working on electric car. They're working on a Project V, Project 5 if you like, and that has a new compact. It's a completely new type of electric drivetrain. It's compact. They want to actually try and make sure that it weighs less than 1,200 kilograms, even with a 250-mile range, but about 80k. So they're working on the tech, and you can see if they can master that tech, they could put that into the old 7 as well. Now, if you're thinking, oh, I know how to circumnavigate this or circumvent this or find a loophole, and that is basically I'll get a kit car and I'll build it myself after 2030. Well, no, because actually the 2030 deadline also applies to those as well, so you can't do that. So they also have to be electric now. Now, theoretically, I suppose if you are really, really determined, what you could do is if, for example, Caterham had gone EV by that time, but you wanted a petrol Caterham 7, you could buy the EV one, and because of simplicity itself, rip out the EV motor and batteries and stick an engine in there. That could see a roaring trade in used old internal combustion engines in the market, right? But that would be a lot of work, though. And but I suppose some diehard people might find that's the only way to get around and get yourself a newish petrol car after 2029. So there you go. Let me know if I've missed any. Let me know what you think of that, and let me know what car you are planning to get before that 2030 deadline kicks in. Make sure you hit like, share, subscribe, all the rest of it, and I'll catch you all in the next video. Shout out time, guys. Thank you so much. Hey, if you enjoy my content, why not get involved? Buy me a coffee. You can do that at either of these links, or if you're watching on YouTube, buy me a thanks or take out a membership. It all helps. It really does.